feel like a lot of us are set up for false hope when it comes to first kisses. If you grew up watching a lot of Disney TV like myself and with your head constantly in fairy tales, I guess you had the thought that it would be with this really great guy and the experience would be so lovely. And when it finally happened, you thought a string quartet was gonna burst out of the cupboard and play all of the romantic music you thought would play in a film, and your heart would just be full. When in reality, we know it's a little bit different. There's no lifting us up to a mist of joy and like ascending into the heavens. It's usually a little bit awkward and a little bit clunky. As I said, for most people, at least me, it is that experience of the latter. It's awkward. You don't know what you're doing for the first time. I remember my first kiss was with a boy and his name was Bobby. He was very like cute looking, like very innocent. I remember he was just a little bit taller than me, probably like 2 or 3 inches, and he had not straggly but like smooth mousy blonde hair. He was definitely angling for something that was a little bit more than a kiss, but we weren't willing to have that on the menu that day. I think I was 14 or 15. I really can't remember. I searched him up on Facebook. I'm not sure if the boldness is intentional or not, but you know, we love bold men too. And I think he now has a kid. So, you know, that ship has sailed. Why did I fancy Bobby? Well, I don't know. I think with your first kiss, it's not necessarily like the person you fancied the most up until that point in your life. It's the first time you feel comfortable with that opportunity, usually and hopefully. But I definitely did fancy Bobby at the time. I mean, this is going back about 10 years or so, maybe a little bit more. Bobby wore one of those little fisherman beanies on his head circa 2012 2013, but it wasn't a full size beanie, it was like a micro beanie. I remember at the time as well, I really fancied his southern accent, because obviously I grew up just outside of Manchester, and hearing a southern accent and kissing this boy who had this softer spoken, you know, oh hi, how are you, oh my god, like he sounds like he was off Made in Chelsea. He wasn't, but it was attractive because it was different. Clearly did something for me. And also he was 1 or 2 years older than me, which, you know, was very important to me at the time. I don't know how to describe it, so I'll try and describe it. But when I was in high school, I just really wasn't interested in boys my own age. Of course, I fancied 1 or 2, but I'd always prefer someone who looked or felt older than my current age. Like, I think that's a very universal and very real thing. I don't think anyone would say that's weird, but up until my adulthood, I've obviously carried on this trend of refusing to date men my own age. But at the time, I think it came from a place of I just couldn't relate to them, you know. I just couldn't relate to the experiences of them. Not that like my life had been this deep, dark thing that they couldn't understand, but I think being a younger sibling, always growing up with older siblings, and also my cousin lineage, I'm quite young, I'm the second youngest out of 8 cousins, I always felt, you know, more drawn to older souls. Before we get into your stories, I always like to read you off some facts of interesting data or facts around first kisses. So from my research, this is what I found. So when do first kisses usually happen for people in the UK? Well, in the UK, the average age for a first romantic kiss is around 15 years old. That's the typical age most people report having that milestone moment. Most first kisses happen in the early to mid-teen years. Around 40% of people have had theirs by age 14 or younger sometimes, with many clustered around age 14 to 16. A small number of people get their kisses a little bit later. Only about 5% have kissed before the age of 10, and a minority, brackets around 10 to 15%, don't kiss until after 20. This can be influenced by location, lifestyle, or religion. As the average age for the first kiss in the UK is around 15, many other countries have different ranges for when teens have their first kiss due to their own cultural norms. In Spain, first kisses are usually around 12 to 13, and in Scandinavian countries, they are usually a little bit higher, from around 15 to 16. This is interesting. Kissing age has trended slightly younger over generations, with today's teens often kissing earlier than people did decades ago. I mean, I get that the kids are quite fast these days, not in like a rude way, but I just think kids are exposed to so much more TV or social media, so they're more aware of what things are. Like, not that long ago I had a conversation with my grandma about before she went in to have a baby, which obviously isn't a first kiss, but the first time she went in to go and have a baby, she didn't know what would happen. I mean, she knew that she would give birth, but people weren't really speaking about what happens when it happens and the intricacies of the birds and the bees and mechanics, you know. But these days kids know everything and they tell each other in very graphic fashion. Psychologically, a first kiss is often remembered not for its technique but for who it was with and the feelings at the first time. And finally, 40% of people say their first kiss didn't meet their expectations or was, in brackets, awkward. So the first title is called Year 5 Man-Eating Maniac, in brackets, I was 9. In Year 5, I was on a residential school trip in Devon, and my first kiss was with, let's call her Trudy. What we know about Trudy now is very different from what we knew about Trudy then. Now she's unbelievably stunning. Each year when I go home for Christmas and we bump into each other when we're out drinking at the local pub, although we're just friends, I still look forward to seeing her and get a bit giddy about it. Trudy is amazing, but the thing about her is back then, Trudy was, and in brackets, is still a little bit of a off her rocker type. At that age, I remember my class going on a trip. On this trip and around being this age, what I remember about my class is that the girls would very much keep to the girls and the boys would very much keep to the boys. And we were always too scared to talk to the girls, vice versa. But sometimes we did socialise and we'd say we're going out with each other, but nothing ever really happened. Sometimes we would chat for 2 or 3 minutes and that would be it. But not Trudy. You see, Trudy was a bit of a loner. No one really hung out with her apart from this one boy who was also part of my friendship group too, with all of the boys. At the same time, Trudy was known for being quite outspoken, opinionated, and a little bit gothic, so naturally the girls were a bit mean to her and weren't that welcoming. To be honest, some of the boys found her a little bit intimidating looking back now. On the trip, one of the girls who was especially mean to everyone, but Trudy in particular, said mean things about her. I can't quite remember specifically what she said about her, but it was along the lines of her being a loser and no one liked her, especially the boys, which just simply wasn't true. We just didn't really socialise much with the girls. However, Trudy being Trudy had a plan. Gosh. My friend was chirping this mean girl at the time. I don't really know why, she was a bit of a bitch. But at the time there was a big commotion over whether they would kiss or not on this trip. We all felt it was coming and it was a very big discussion point in the group, which at the time had a cinema rating of about 12A in terms of scandal. My friend, who was friends with Trudy, was telling me that Trudy was going to sneak into our dorm a little bit later that night when the teachers had gone to bed. And sure enough, she did. And as I said, what became very apparent is that Trudy had a plan, a very, very clear plan, and she wanted to piss off all the girls and rile them off in the right way, especially to the girl who's being mean to her. Trudy announced to the room that she would be kissing all of the 8 boys in our dorm to make sure none of the girls were getting their first kiss on that trip. Oh. So what proceeded to happen was Trudy pecked every boy in the dorm on the lips. Nothing vulgar, just an innocent peck. And low-key, I rated it, but felt super awkward at the time. I felt like she was taking advantage of us all, and we all just said yes to the kiss because it's the first time we got the chance to kiss a girl. But after, when Trudy left, we were all in disbelief over what just happened. And eventually, one of the girls found out from the boys telling her that Trudy came into the dorm and kissed all of the boys. And Trudy got into so much trouble at school. She became known until we left into high school as the girl who kissed all the boys in the dorm. And it wasn't a great look. And her parents had to come into school and she almost got expelled for it, but she didn't. So it's fine. All of us felt super scared and a little bit nervous after around her. And then when we went into high school, it suddenly became chill. She was the infamous girl who took away all the other girls' opportunities to have a first kiss on our big PGL trip to Devon. I'm going to give that a 9 out of 10. I don't think Trudy should have been like demanding all the boys kiss her, but like that is a plan to piss off the girls. So well done to Trudy. Number 2's title is called Going Back for a Sensory Overload. My first kiss happened embarrassingly late, like fully grown adult late. I was about 21. And looking back now, I just felt a bit embarrassed that I hadn't had a first kiss, and I just wanted to be part of this thing that everyone was speaking about. I grew up in a super conservative family, and instead of just doing what I did, I should have just tried to find someone I fancy instead of feeling this need to cave and just kiss someone randomly. It all took place on a sticky floor in a club toilet queue at around 1 a.m. in a nightclub in a tragic little town in the UK. What's the tragic little town in the UK? I'm gonna guess Scunthorpe. There was a boy in front of me, and I remember thinking that he had nice shoulders, and that was enough apparently. We were both tipsy, shouting over the music, flirting in that really unhinged drunk way where you're basically just yelling compliments into each other's faces. I remember smelling Lynx Africa on him and thinking, I've definitely smelt that before. And there was this really long, intense eye contact moment, and we both went in at the same time but at the completely wrong angles. Our teeth clunked, I laughed, I panicked, and then he tried to go in but somehow kissed my chin. So I tried to act natural, but I just still couldn't believe that this had gone so horribly wrong. We finally connected, and he tasted like Jaeger bombs and Wetherspoon's garlic mayo. I didn't know Wetherspoon's has like such a specific garlic mayo taste, but I will have to try it next time I go. It all felt a bit grim mixed in with my lip gloss. Afterwards, he whispered that was hot when I was actively wiping his spit off my face with my hand. I don't think about it often, but when I do think about it, I cringe. So thank you for making me go down an unpleasant memory I didn't want to go down today writing this for you. Thinking about all of the combinations of the flavours still makes me want to hurl to this day. Ew, I don't like that one. I don't mind kissing a smoker. They taste like Bad Boy, so that's not bad. But never be with a smoker. I wouldn't want to be with someone who's got the breath of like garlic mayo, especially from Wetherspoons. Number 3, keep the best to last. So the title of this one is called My First Kiss Changed Our Status as the Power Couple. Who was your first kiss with? My first kiss was with my first boyfriend at age 16. We were the first proper couple going strong for about 6-ish months before we had our first kiss. I really liked him at the time, and I spent a good year crushing over him. So being with him felt like I had hit the lottery. On paper, the kiss had to be good. It just had to be. It's all I was imagining in my head up until that point. We were watching DC's Watchmen at the time, and I remember being so excited because I could just tell it was about to happen. I was pretending to be scared of some parts of the film that I just really wasn't scared about, and he was putting his arm around me, and we snuggled, and then it finally happened. However, it all went a bit wrong from there. I remember kissing him at the time, and everything seemed like I heard Snogs go. But then I felt a bump in his mouth. He kissed me for a bit longer, and then after I left his house on the way home, I called my friend and gave her the lowdown of everything that had happened and this bump that I felt in his mouth. Looking back, it was just an ulcer, which I also have had before. Granted, he should have informed me about it before we had this kiss and stipulated that it is just an ulcer. But then again, we're teenagers at the time, so I can understand that it's not the top of his list. But my so-called friend at the time managed to make me so nervous that I went to a sexual health clinic eventually and got swabs done, where in reality I'd just been chewing my gums. And then a couple of days later, I broke down in my mum's arms and cried that at 16 I had contracted herpes from kissing a boy. It all got really out of hand, and my so-called friend started a rumour that my boyfriend at the time had given me herpes. Up until this very day, he must have thought I had a big mouth and started that rumour. I was mortified and have never been this level of mortified ever since. My mum has kindly never uttered this to a single soul she knows, but likes to remind me of it from time to time to embarrass me. I went from being this well-respected power couple in my friendship group that people really loved to being the girl who might or might not have herpes. I think what your friend was doing there at the time, she wasn't really your friend. I think she was jealous that you got your first kiss, and she was like, how can I ruin this for you, because you're the power couple and I'm quite jealous that I don't get to be the power couple, so how do I kind of rip these two down, get some clout, and then the space is there for me to take over with someone else as the power couple. You know, like, I think that might have been what was going on. Okay guys, well, thank you for listening to Anonymous Voices today, First Kisses edition.